Well, good evening, good evening, good evening, everybody. If you guys begin to come into the room, we'll just kind of wait and just take our time for a little while. Go over some things that we know we just want to go over. Good evening, Miss Destiny. Good Miss Diva of Destiny, excuse me. Good to see you. You guys come into the room. Tell me hello. Let me know how your day was. I want to hear from you. How was your day? Good morning or good evening, Terry. As you guys come into the room, I also not only want to know how your day was, but if it's your first time actually sharing with us, put in very blessed. I like to hear that. Put in your location. If it's your first time sharing with us, put in your location of where you are. I'm very interested to know that. We're talking about today, if you don't know, this is Faith for Financial Freedom, also Financial Freedom University, in conjunction with GM Howard Jr. Ministries. We just got a whole lot going on. Houston, Texas. Amen. Texas seems to be the spot. I think we got several people that actually tunes in from Texas that will be tuning in. And with that being said, we're in prayer. I know you'll be watching the repost and the recast. Glad to be here. It's warm there in Jesus' name. It's warm there. It's kind of cold here. We got heat on and coats and all that kind of stuff. So enjoy it. Enjoy it. Lady Drea is actually traveling. She's going to the Holy Land, and she's one of our faithful viewers. And I just want to wish her well. We know we're praying for her. Denise, good afternoon, good evening. We're praying for Lady Drea. If you guys are not followers of Miss Drea, you want to follow her. She's actually going to be touring the Holy Land, and while she's there, she's going to be periscoping. And so if you want to be a part of that endeavor and part of that sharing, I would advise you to share with her. I can't wait for her to broadcast our first one. Right now, we're praying for safe travels for her. And we know that God, she's wrapped in the hands of God and the blood of Jesus all over. So we're great with that. Today, we're actually going to be redoing the inflation one, as I was told. I think it only recorded like 11 minutes of the inflation on Thursday of last week. And as a result, I was told to redo it. And so we'll be redoing inflation. So if you didn't get it the first time, you will get it this time in the name of Jesus. Bless God. It will happen. Listen, we're pushing for this broadcast to actually begin to expand. And so we will begin to see different marketing and different materials actually going on Facebook and to our group, Faith for Financial Freedom. You begin to see different marketing that you will begin to see. Please repost and please reshare that on your page as well. And then we also ask you to slide from left to right. If you're on iOS, and go ahead and share that with people. Let people know that we are on. And if you're on Android, slide from bottom up and share as well. Before we get started, let's go ahead and get started. This is Faith for Financial Freedom, where we believe one thing, and that is that money management is a mindset. I believe that poverty is a mindset and broke is a temporary condition. I'm telling you now, if you broke today, it won't be very long. As we change your mind, your money will change. I promise you. If you change your mind, your money will change. We're going to change you from the land of not enough to the land of more than enough. That's when you have enough for you and someone else. The Bible is so clear that a good man leaves an inheritance for his children's children. That's right. A good man leaves an inheritance for his children's children. And so we're going to believe, God, that you're going to start walking in the land of more than enough as you begin to apply the principles that we're sharing with you every single day. 7 o'clock in the morning, we do biblical principles. And at 7:30 at night, we do life application. We believe that faith without works is dead. So we want to give you faith in the morning with biblical principles, and we teach you how to work in the afternoon with life application. The Bible says this. He said he will bless the work of your hands. And if your hands are not working, there's nothing to bless. And so we're going to actually begin to implement practical application principles on how to actually grow wealth. And that is, how do you put together a budget? How do you actually begin to invest? How do you actually do real estate? How do you incorporate if you want to do a business? How do we get out of debt in the name of Jesus? We believe that for supernatural increase, what to do with there's so many things that we do right here that we're teaching you every single day, from your credit to everything else. So we are definitely encouraged every single day that we actually come on. So I'm excited about it. Let's get started with inflation. One of the 5 enemies of wealth. It grew. I know y'all said, well, last time it was 4 enemies of wealth. It grew. No, I believe it was Reginald on Friday. When we did the game, and actually Lady Drea is champion. Lady Drea is champion. We did the game, and he actually said that one of the enemies of wealth was debt. And I agree with him 100%. And so that is one of the 5 enemies of wealth now. It's not 4, it's 5 enemies of wealth. It might be even 6, because I'm thinking about putting you on the list. You may be an enemy of wealth, but we don't speak that in Jesus' name. We know that you are a wealth creator in Jesus' name. So inflation. Inflation is the first one that we're going to be talking about. Inflation is an enemy of wealth. What is it? How does it work? What does it do? And how do we make sure that inflation does not become an enemy, but we can actually make it an ally. It's not an enemy, but an ally. How do we actually make sure that we are prepared for inflation? Inflation is this. Inflation is simply this. It is the sustained increase in the general level of prices for goods and services. A sustained increase in the general level of prices of goods and services. And that simply says this, that as your goods and services begin to go up, that's called inflation. As inflation rises, every dollar you own buys a smaller percentage of goods and services. So, for example, what we actually do, Joy, how you doing? Good evening. For example, if I was to buy, I'll be right back. Let me get this. So let's say I'm a visual person. Let's say this plum here, I bought this plum. This plum cost me 25 cents. This plum cost me 25 cents. And I go to the store, I get paid 25 cents for my plum. And, it's a daily habit. It's a daily habit. And I go into the store one day, and this same plum doesn't cost me 25 cents, but now it costs me 50 cents. Well, that's inflation. That means that I'm paying more for the same exact product. The plum is not different. The plum, well, hopefully it's a different plum. I ate the other one. But it's the same quantity of product, the plum. However, what I could have with 50 cents, it could have bought me 2 plums. 50 cents could have bought me 2 plums, but now that 50 cents is only going to buy me 1 plum. And so what they're saying is that many people say that the prices of the plum has gone up, and that is true. The price of the plum did go up. However, also, if you look at it in reverse, your dollar and the purchasing power of that dollar got weaker. It takes more money to buy the same good. It takes more money to buy the same good. This good here was 25 cents. It now takes more money to buy this plum. It was 25, now it's 50. And so with that being said, purchasing power is the value of currency expressed in the terms of the amount of goods and services. So it's the amount of money that it takes to buy a good or service. It's your purchasing power. And so we don't want our purchasing power to go down. We want our purchasing power to go up. But unfortunately, that's not the way our economy is designed and evolved. And so we have to learn how to work within the parameters of that economy and actually how to do these and how to actually work within it. And so the way I like to do this is that we did it last time. I thought it went very well. Raven, good afternoon. It went very well last time. So we're going to do the same thing again. It went very well last time. And that is, let's do this. I know we have people from all over the country and all different ages, all different cultures, and all different sexes. So and so let's play the same game we did last time, and that is gas. When I was younger, I started driving. I'll tell my age. I have no problems with it. I'm 39 years old. I started driving when I was about 14, honestly. Legally, I was driving before that. But legally, I was driving at 14. Gas was actually 79 cents. Was it 79 or 89? 79 cents at the pump. I remember going to the gas station on East 4th Street paying 79 cents at the pump. That's when you could have people in the car with you and they gave you $2 for gas money and you were happy. Because it bought you 3 gallons of gas. That's about a half a tank. I mean, you would fill up for $10 and you was good. Like, really, for real. So $2 for gas money was okay. Give me $2. Today, not quite. So for me, I'm telling you that my age, I'm 39. You don't have to put your age on there, but I just want to hear from people across the country. What did you, in different ages, when you were younger, what did you pay for a gallon of gas? I want to see. When you remember driving down the street and you seen the signs that was lit up, what was the price of gas? Go ahead and put it, text it in. I want to know that price of gas. For me, it was actually 79 cents, and this was probably around I'll say about 1990, 1989, 1990. Somewhere in there. So what did you put? Somebody said Los Angeles, $1.05, 1990. So we got $1.05 in Los Angeles. I was in Iowa, and somebody said $1. Who else in here? What did you pay for a gallon of gas when you were younger? Something you might be driving, so you can't text. But what did you pay when you were younger for a gallon of gas? You remember the cheapest price you ever seen for a gallon of gas? Virginia, 75 cents growing up. 75 cents is cheaper than my 79. So 75 cents in Virginia, 99 cents, Miss Brittany. All right, we got 99 cents, Miss Brittany. And Miss Brittany, I think you were in Chicago, correct? Yeah. And we got Virginia. Nobody else wants to play with us. Des Moines, Iowa, 99 cents. All right, so we're looking at 99 cents. So look like the cheapest we have right now is 75 cents. We have, and then we have 99 cents in Des Moines. Now, 99 cents when it will pop up, but I was in kindergarten. You know what, Raven? All right, well, you was in kindergarten. You still remember saying 99 cents. So at some point, I think everybody can say that it was less than $1. I think California said that there was $1.05 in California when she remembered $1.05. My husband paid 71 cents in Kansas in 88. 71 cents. That's what I'm talking about. I like 71 cents. One of them days coming back. So 71 cents. 71 cents is what the lowest price that we actually seen in 88. I was in 1990. I said 79. I was in Iowa. Looked like he was in Kansas. Put in here, Kansas. Okay. So, all right. So now, what is the price? Well, okay. The movies. What was the price of a movie when you were growing up? When I was growing up, the movies was like $5. $5. Like, I could go to the movies for $5. It was good. If I had a date, I could take $15 and we were straight, like for real. Yeah, that was like popcorn and everything. For $15, we was okay. I wish that was still the case. All right, so you got the movies. And for me, it was $5. For you, when you were growing up, how much was it for a movie ticket? A movie ticket. Raven said the Dollar Theater. We ain't going through this again, Raven. For a regular movie, not the matinee, for a regular movie, how much was the movies when you were growing up? The drive-in was $5. Man, you got 3 movies for $5. And you know what? I think that's about right. Where I was to the drive-in was like $5. For the same price, we got more movies. You got 3 movies. And I know by the 3rd movie, we was probably dozing off, falling asleep. But I'm a movie buff, so I was alert. I was the one didn't even like people walking in front of the car because it was getting in the way of my movie. In the name of Jesus. 425 coming to America. And yes, the Dollar Theater. I remember Coming to America. That's one of my favorite movies too, by the way, Miss Diva. Favorite movies. I'm not sure, but I believe it was $4 or $5. So we say $5. So we got lowest 4 for $5. All right. And I was in 2nd grade. Wow. All right. All right. So gas. We said gas. We got movies. And then we also said a pack of chewing gum. Y'all remember Doublemint Twins? Y'all remember Juicy Fruit? Y'all remember them? Remember Bubblicious? Well, Bubblicious was always more money than it was for the pack of gum. But I remember I don't know what happened to Bubblicious. That was good. May have made a couple cavities and rotten a couple teeth, but Bubblicious was good. How much? I remember it being 25 cents for a 5-pack of gum. It was 25 cents then. What do you guys pay for a pack of gum when you guys were growing up? How much was a pack of gum growing up? I don't even know if you can still get a 5-pack of gum. I think somebody told me now that you can't even get a 5-pack of gum. But how much was a 5-pack of chewing gum? 10 cents. Then 25 cents. So you said 10 cents. I don't remember 10 cents. 10 cents is still around. Bubblicious is still around? I ain't seen it. Again, in kindergarten, I'm not a real big gum chewer. I'll take your gum, but I'm usually not going to buy none. Bazooka. I remember that Bazooka gum. I remember that. What you know about penny candy? Penny candy, boy, was the bomb. We would actually, we would go to the dollar store, not dollars. We go to the store on the way to, I had the cigar gum. Yeah, I remember that. Act like you were smoking. We would go to the corner store. We'd go to the corner store on the way to school, and we had $1. We'd pick 100 pieces of candy and take them to school, and then the teacher would take our candy, and we'd be mad because we weren't supposed to have candy in school. But we bought chews and chews and Chico sticks and lemon heads and Boston baked beans. Y'all remember all that? Apple cherry apples and all that kind of stuff. Your aunt had the candy store. Man, I'm telling you, it was the bomb back when you could actually get penny candy. Penny candy don't cost a penny no more. Penny candy is now 10 cents. You go, man, Chico sticks. Y'all know about a Chico stick. Chico sticks are 75 cents to $1 now. One Chico stick. You be like, man, this was 10 cents growing up. 5 cents, actually. 5 or 10 cents. I don't remember. It was cheap. Now it's 25 cents now. It's not. Is it 25 cents? Okay, well, now 25 cents. Went from a nickel to a dime to 25 cents. What are we experiencing? We're experiencing something called inflation. Today, a gallon of gas where you are is how much? I believe the last time I filled up here was $1.59 for regular. I have to get premium gas the Think regular, yes, penny candy with all the smaller packaging. Yes, y'all see, I remember that penny candy. Gas. How much is gas now where y'all are? How much is gas where you are? I don't remember. I don't even remember. Houston, $1.35 regular. Look at that. That ain't that bad. $1.35 regular in Houston. We're going to put over here in Texas, $1.35 in Texas. What else? $1.53. $1.53. This is regular gas, right, Raven? She's in Indiana. $1.56 in Des Moines. Chicago's $1.99. Now, these are actually pretty cheap. Y'all do remember when gas was $4. I remember when gas was $4 a gallon. Lord, and I was driving an Expedition in. Man, it hurt my feelings. I was driving that big Expedition. I was looking to sell that thing. It's like, it got to go now. Not now. It didn't have to go now. It had to go now. Gas went to $4 a gallon, man. I said, no, my brother, we got to do something different. And so, yeah, I remember that. So we're actually going to talk about how, you know, that actually fluctuates with our life as well. How much is to go to the movies? Yeah, you didn't see no Hummers on the streets, did you? No. Well, we're going to believe that God gives it to us. He's going to actually provide for it. But movies today is about $10, $25, $11. We would say, I say $10 where I'm at. How much is the movies where you are? The movies where you are. The movies. $7.50 in Portage. Is it really for a regular movie? That's awesome. 10 in Maryville. Okay, so $10 in Maryville. Anybody got anything more in Chicago? Evening is $7. Really? $10.25. You say you went last night in Houston. $10.25 in Houston. All right. So that's our movie theater. Our gum. How much is gum today? We said 10 cents for a pack when we were younger. 10 cents for a pack growing up. And today it is how much? How much is the 5-pack of chewing gum? We can still get it. How much is that? I'm waiting. Let me see. 20, I'm not a gum chewer, so I can't even answer this question. 35 cent, you believe. So we say it went from 10 cents to 35 cents. Yeah, we got you, Raven. All right, so gas went, we'll say we'll go with, oops, I hit the stick. In Kansas went from 71 cents up to as much as $1.99. We've seen the increase in price, and that's from then to now, today. That's from then to now today. We know that we've seen the price of oil go up as a result of the price of oil going up. Has made the price of gas go up, and when gas went up, it caused everything else to go up. And so oil has now come down per barrel because we're less depending on it. And so that's going to be a great example as we begin to talk about inflation and what causes it. And so this is actually examples of inflation. Movies. When I remember my mama telling me, she said, when I went to the movies, movies was a nickel. I said, a who? A nickel? It was a nickel. I ain't never heard of such a thing, a nickel for a movie. Yeah, them just kind of tell her age in Jesus' name. A nickel for a movie. Gum went from 10 cents to 35 cents. That's called inflation. What happened? Prices didn't necessarily go up. The dollar over time got weaker. The dollar over time got weaker. And so it takes more money to buy the same exact product. Over the years that you begin to live in the United States, you begin to see the prices of all your goods and services actually go up. And so with that being the case, the dollar is getting weaker. Now, what happens with that? There is something called the Federal Reserve that we actually going to talk about on Friday again, because that one didn't record either. So we'll be talking about that again as well. But there's something called the Federal Reserve that actually the Federal Reserve is the monetary system, where they make the policies for our monetary system in this country. The Federal Reserve makes the policies for our monetary system in this country, and they control how much money is actually circulating in our economy. They control that by putting money in and taking money out. And then they also try to control inflation by what's called interest rates. You see interest rates going up and interest rates going down. You'll usually see people say something like, the Fed is meeting today. And that's Ben Bernanke now. It was Alan Greenspan a few years ago. And so now it's Ben Bernanke. And you begin to see them. The Fed is meeting. The chair will come out and he will actually begin to say, because of the economy and this, and we're believing is going to stimulate this and do this. And as a result, it's going to move a quarter of a point And that's huge. I'm like, a quarter of a point ain't nothing. No, a quarter of a point is huge. It's huge when you begin to talk about different things. And then they'll come out every quarter and actually talk about what's going on. Sometimes it'll stay the same. Sometimes it'll go down. Sometimes it'll go up. And when that quarter of a point happens, it actually affects the lending and the market. And as the lending is affected, it affects how much money you are borrowing and how much money you are actually going to have access to based on those interest rates. Because guess what? When interest rates are low, people don't want to invest as much because their return is not as much. That's kind of how it works. When interest rates are high, investors are happy because they're making more money on their money. So that's how it goes. Here's the catch with this. If you put $5, you put $5 in your drawer in 1989, how many gallons of gas could you have purchased? You know, say 7, you go on to 5. We're looking at about 6, 7, 8. Yeah, so 7, you could have got about 7 gallons of gas evenly. Well, 7 is some change. Could have got about 7 gallons of gas with this $5. Now, I don't know how big your tank is, but that got to be at least a half a tank. 7 gallons of gas with this $5. Today, if I was going to go to the same gas station on the same corner, how much gas could I buy with this same $5? Well, we're looking at in Chicago at $1.99 a gallon, we could only buy 2.5 gallons. So we went from 7 gallons to 2.5 gallons with the same $5 at the same gas station on the same corner just years later. What happened? The dollar depreciated. I can get less money for the same, I have to use more money for the same commodity. Excuse me. More money for the same commodity. So what happens with that? Well, as price and demand have a direct effect on each other. Price and demand have a direct effect on each other. So as demand goes up, what happens to price? Price goes up. As demand goes up, price goes up. And so as people receive more money, guess what they start doing? They start spending more. And so you'll find that the Fed says that one of the ways to stimulate the economy, I'm sure you guys have heard this, to stimulate the economy. Remember when George Bush gave that stimulation package? And I think people got, if you filed your taxes, you got, I think it was $500 or $1,000 if you were married. You got that extra money back. Y'all remember that? Yeah, y'all remember? Y'all probably forgot. It was a stimulation package. What were they doing? Well, the economy had pretty much come to a halt because of the big bank's bailout. Economy pretty much came to a halt. People wasn't spending. So what were they going to do to encourage you to spend more? They gave you extra money. As they gave you extra money, they put extra money into the system. Why? So that you can actually begin to spend. As you spend, it will stimulate the economy and get the economy actually moving again. That's what they were trying to do. The more money you have, they already know the more money you're going to spend. It's one of the laws that they have, not with us. The more money we have, the more we can get out of debt with, and the more money we have, the more we can invest, and the more we grow. We actually going to multiply money, not consume it. We're not consumers. The world are consumers. We are multipliers in Jesus' name. We grow money, we don't consume it. So, price and demand. So, as demand begins to increase because you have more money, what happens to price? That means price goes up. So, one of the things we just got done talking about was oil. One of the things we were talking about was oil. What happened when gas went to $4 a gallon was that most of the oil refineries in Louisiana behind Katrina had shut down. At least that's what we were told. Is that most of the oil refineries had shut down due to Katrina, which means there was less of a supply. If there's not as much gas and you have the same as much demand, that means that the demand is even greater because there's less of supply. There's less. So as supply gets smaller, if demand stays constant and supply gets smaller, that means demand is actually greater. So I'm going to try to say that again and try to bring it into something that's more easier to understand. Is if I have 4 plums, all right, and every day people come in and buy 4 plums, and I know that each one of these plums is 25 cents. I know every day I'm going to make $1 off of 4 plums. So Monday, I made $1 off 4 plums. Tuesday, I made $1 off 4 plums. Wednesday, I made $1 off 4 plums. Well, I get my plums from a supplier. Well, I know that when I went to my supplier, what I usually get, I can only get 2 plums for the amount of money that I used to get for my plums. So because I have to pay more for my plums, the demand got smaller. My supply got smaller, but I still want to make $1. I still got to generate my profit. So now this is now 50 cents a plum instead of 25 cents, so I can still take my $1. So my supply went from 4 to 2. Supply went from 4 to 2. But my demand, people still coming in to buy their plums. They still want them. I know now that I can get at least 50 cents for these plums because the demand is still the same, but my supply is smaller. So now I'm going to charge you more per plum because I still want my $1. If that makes sense? I heard a story this way too. We're going to tell this story and then we're going to move on. There was a guy, there was a couple people on the boat. The ship had tanked. And so there were a couple of people on the boat. And guy was on the rescue boat or whatever. And there was no food. Like, one of them rafts or whatever. There was no food. The guy says, I got an orange. And people are like, oh, I want that orange. So, they started, trying to figure out how to get the orange from the young man. And so one of the people pulled out $5, said, I'll give you $5 for this orange. He was like, I'll give it to you. So another person said, well, I got $20 for the orange. Who you think got the orange? The one with the $20. Same orange. It's the exact same orange. But one was willing to pay $20 because why? There was less of the demand. Less of supply. When there's less of supply, and there's demand, it drives price up. So when there's less of supply of oil and we still had demand, the price went up gallons per barrel. Now watch how this affects the economy. When oil went up, that means gas went up. So anything that had to be moved from one city to another, it caused them to have to pay more to bring those goods and services into their store. As they had to pay more, what happens? They pass it on to the consumer because they still want the same amount of money. So they pass that cost on to the consumer. But so let's say I own a daycare. Well, I'm spending more money for my food, my tires, for anything that uses oil, whether it travels, whatever. So I own a daycare and I say, well, I'm spending more money for all my other stuff. I need more money. So now I'm going to, instead of me charging $100 per kid, it's now $110 per kid per week. Why? What's happening is that everything is going up because the cost of living is going up. As that cost of living goes up, that's called push. That's called demand push. That's called push. Demand push is one of the reasons that cause inflation. Demand goes up, price goes up along with demand. And then we also have something called when there's more money in the economy and we start spending more, demand still goes up, not because there's less of a supply, but because we just have more money circulating in the economy that drives up price because there's more demand. So every single year you're going to have what's called you're going to have more money that actually circulates in the economy, well, hopefully. And then as a result of that, it's going to push inflation up. So one of the ways they try to offset that is say, well, we know that every year price is going to go up. They know it. It's the way the economy is designed. It's called capitalism. It's the way it's designed. So because that's the way it's designed, what they do is that on your job, you're supposed to get a cost of living increase. Most people call them raises. That's not a raise. Most people call them raises. Every single year, inflation in this country is about 3 to 4%. Inflation, I need to write that down. Inflation is about 3 to 4% in this country every single year. All right. So as you begin to look at that, they usually give you a cost of living increase that used to be, and I'm going to say it used to be 3 to 4%. You got a 4% raise every single year, at least a minimum of 4%, because that was what it cost to live at the same level. So if you were making $10,000 a year, and we're just using round numbers, you got a 4% raise. As the economy, as inflation went up 4% and you went up 4%, so let's say you're here. Inflation goes up 4% and your cost of living, your cost of living increase was 4% as well, you're still at the same level. So if I made more money and everybody else made a 4% raise and prices went up 4%, it still costs the same. So believe it or not, if things happen the way they were designed to work, the way they were supposed to happen, is that as the prices went up every single year, my raise went up every single year, or my cost of living increase went up every single year. And so virtually the same amount of money that it virtually cost me in 2009 or 1989, it's the same amount of money it's costing me today, because I have more money and I have a larger price. More money, larger price. If everything stays constant, it's still the same. If everything grows at the same rate, it's still the same. So cost of living is still the same. That $10,000 virtually still buys the same amount of goods and services as it did, because it goes up. Y'all still with me? I'm trying to repeat that again. Don't want to lose nobody. So as the economy begins to do inflation, and that's at 4% increase, and my cost of living is at 4%, I haven't lost anything and I haven't gained anything. So you thought when you got a cost of living increase that you had more money. You don't, because prices went up along with you. That's the cost of living, to keep you at the same living standard that you were already at. That's what that's for. It's to keep you at the same living standard that you were already at. So if inflation goes up 4% and your raise is 1%, which I had a cousin actually get a 1% raise, and this was recently. Like, I really did. Her name was, well, I ain't gonna tell her business. She lives in Mississippi, and she called me and she was upset because she got a 1% raise. I'm not joking, 1%. It came out to be like 10 cents a day. It was ridiculous. Like 10 cents a day, 50 cents a week. Like, it was ridiculous, and she was upset. Well, what happens? That 1% raise and inflation at 4%, her dollar is now 3% less. 3% less valuable or purchasing power than it would have had. If she would have got a 4% raise, that dollar still buys the same amount, because price went up, income went up. So it's still the same amount. But she got a 1% raise, she lost 3%. So if your cost of living increase does not match the 3 to 4% inflation, you are losing money every single day. Every time you work and every time they pay you, you're losing 3% more than you was the year before. That's inflation. Inflation, your cost of living increase is supposed to grow at the same rate as the inflation. Well, what happened? It didn't happen that way. Over the last couple of years, we begin to see our pay stay the same and the price of goods and services continue to go up. Our pay stayed the same and the price of goods and services continue to go up. And what happens is that, well, they put the money in the economy, but the CEOs now make about 300% more than they did in the 80s. The money that was supposed to be passed down as a cost of living increase to the employees, the CEOs kept it. The upper executive, they kept that money. That money actually was put into the economy. They just said, we're going to keep it. And when they killed the unions, there was nothing to fight to say we want this money, because we had no power. The unions was the muscle to say we want at least the cost of living increase. CEO said, you know what? We're going to make more profit. We're going to pass it on to our profit shares. The people who invest into our companies, we pay them more dividends, and we're going to take a bigger bonus. Forget the workers. So now you're actually making less money than you were, not because they reduced your pay, but because your money buys less purchasing power. Has less purchasing power than it did the year before and the year before and the year before. So the reason it feels like you can't make ends meet right now is because you make less money. I know you still make $10,000 a year. That's what we said a minute ago. You still make but that $10,000 does not buy the same amount of goods and services as it did 10 years ago. And 10 years ago, inflation was here, but now it's here. And you're still here. So you're being choked. You've been strangled. You've been strangled. Well, what happens to our money if we invested it? Well, if you got it in a bond, if you have it in a money market account, if you have it in a savings account, if you have it under your mattress, if you give it to the tax man every single month and not put it in your paycheck on your W-4s, we talked about that in another episode, and you get a big tax return, we'll talk about that in a second. We're going to draw a line right here. We're going to talk about those tax returns. All right, so you got a bond savings mutual fund or bond savings money market account. Those typically, well, ain't even typically, they don't carry a 4% interest rate. They mostly gonna carry, a bond's gonna carry about 3%. Your savings account gonna have like a 0.5%. Your money market or your money market account is gonna usually be 1 to 2%. But they're liquid, which means I can access them right away. I can access them right away because they're liquid, which means I can access them, but they don't pay as nearly the amount of the rate of inflation. So while I'm putting it up so I have access to it, I'm losing money on those investments every single month. Every single day, actually. Every single day I'm losing money because inflation is going up and my money is staying the same. That's why it's an enemy of wealth. Because even though you're not swimming, you're treading water. You're treading water. You're not going anywhere. You're spinning your wheels. You're going to work and you're making less money. Actually, you're going backwards. You're going, the finish line is here. And as soon as you thought you was going to get closer, you're actually getting backwards and backwards and backwards and backwards, farther and farther and farther away because your dollar is worth less money. That's called inflation. That's why it's an enemy of wealth. So even though you put it in the bank, so we have to actually do what's called real returns. We have to put our money in a place where it will grow greater than inflation. So if we know that inflation, we'll just say 4%, and we want a 6% return on our money, that means that we have to have a 10% return on our money. That 10% return on our money is not really 10%. If you take out the price of inflation, which is 4%, we got a 6% real return on that money. Now, we had a regular return of 10%, minus inflation was 6%. So most people don't calculate inflation because we don't know what to do, how to do. Nobody's ever taught us. That's why we come right here to teach you this stuff every single day. So when you begin to look at different investments, look at the historical trends, and we're going to go into investments in a later date. As you begin to look at your historical trends, we want to take into account of inflation because we know it's going to be 3 to 4% every single year. So if they say over a historical trend over the last 10 years, this investment has made 12%, you take out inflation at 4%, you know you got an 8% return on that. I can put my money in here for 8% and know that it's going to, I know I'm going to get a real return of at least 8% over 10-year period. That is leaving it in there, leaving it alone. And over the last 30 years, they had a 10% return, or 12% return, which is going to be an 8% real return because it's 4% inflation. You got that? Now you said, what do I get those returns? We're going to talk about that in a minute. So who measures the inflation and how do they measure it? They measure it with the Federal Reserve, measure it, and they do it based on the cost of living. And they say based on your health care, based on your daycare, based on your housing, your communication, your education, your apparel, your food and beverages, your transportation, your oil and gas. They take all of these things that make up your everyday living expenses and they monitor it. They monitor it, and as they see it goes up, they try to control inflation. Listen, in the 1700s, Spain was killed. Their whole economy was decimated by inflation. Well, actually, it was called hyperinflation, which means that, you woke up one morning and this plum was 25 cents. You woke up the next morning and it was $25. And this is not made up. And then you went to bed and you woke up the next morning and that $25 plum is now $2,500. This happened in real life and in the 17th century in Spain, and it killed their economy. Inflation because it kept driving up because everybody trying to get more money. And so now the Fed monitors all of these different prices of what's called CPI, your Consumer Price Index. They monitor all the prices of the cost of living, and they will put more money in the economy or take more money out. To put more money in, they're speeding up the economy. So it's going to cause inflation. If they take money out the economy, there's less money there, and you're going to start spending as much, demand goes down, price goes down. Does that make sense? When you stop spending, demand goes down, price goes down. That's how they can try to control inflation. Interest rates. As interest rates go up, what happens to demand? Demand goes down. Interest rates go up. Now it costs me more money to buy the car. I don't want to buy a car right now. We're going to wait for interest rates to go back down. It costs me more money to buy the house. I don't want to buy the house because it costs me more money. We wait for rates to come back down. I remember one time, y'all remember when houses cost 19% interest? It's in the 80s. Houses was 19%. That was a common, 13 to 19% was common. Now we at You know, we had historical lows at 2 and 3% for vehicles and houses, 0% for vehicles, 3% for houses. Man, what happened? They dropped the interest rate so low because they wanted to push demand up. And so now that they say the economy is stabilizing again, they want to start inching interest rates back up again. Why? Because they want to start moving the economy, slow down the economy, and actually begin to actually let the investors start getting money off their bonds and stuff like that. Because when interest rates are low, people don't buy bonds. Doesn't make sense because bonds are based on your interest rates. Okay, I hope I'm not losing y'all. Give me. Is this making sense? Somebody tell me yes, no. Am I losing you? Need to go back. Okay, I see some hearts, so I guess that's yes. All right. So your CPI, they measure it through the cost of living. Your CPI is your cost, is your consumer price index, and they try to control it through interest rates and how much money actually comes into the economy. And so this is the way it actually happens. Remember this. Remember during in the 2007, 2008, when people were saying, we shouldn't bail out the banks. Give that money to us. Y'all remember people were preaching it. Don't give the banks billions of dollars. They don't give the money to us. If you're going to give the money to anybody, it should be to the American people. We suffering. We struggling. We foreclosing on and all this kind of stuff. And because we were the ones getting foreclosed on, we were the ones getting repossessed. Because the banks are not lending and people are saying, give the money to us. Well, think of it this way. If they had gave each person in the United States $100,000, let's say $1 million. Each person in the United States each family, we say each family in the United States got $1 million. What happens to the economic system with inflation? Somebody just tell me, text it in. Everybody in the United States has at least $1 million. At least every family has at least $1 million. What happens to price? Somebody tells me. Somebody tell me. What happens to price? If the government said, okay, well, we're not going to bail out the banks and we're going to actually begin to stimulate the economy again. We're going to give everybody $1 million. And so every family in America now has $1 million. When you go to the store to buy that coat, does it cost the same amount of money? No, it doesn't. Now everything is more expensive. Everything is more expensive. I mean, way expensive. So now that coat that was $100, if everybody's a millionaire, that coat is now probably like, God, $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 for a coat. Why? Because as that money got put into the circulation, demand went up because there's now more money, too much money in the system, and everybody's spending like crazy. Well, prices went up. So ultimately, the price is still the same. Ultimately, you're paying this, even though you got more money, the dollar's weaker. So you didn't gain anything. So the theory was if we bail out the banks and we give the money to the banks and people continue to work, then we can actually, you missed it, you froze. Then actually we can actually get the money, the economy stimulating again without the risk of having inflation take over the economy, hyperinflation, what happened in the 17th century in Spain. So they couldn't give it to us. Sound like a good idea, but anybody who knows, it took economy, economics took economy. Took economics, micro or macroeconomics, would understand that they could not have done it. It would have killed our economy overnight, like literally overnight. I remember the bank bailout. People were mad. Like, you gonna give this money? And I was upset. I'm still upset because I own 2 mortgage companies and they didn't write me no check. They didn't bail my mortgage companies out. And we took a major loss. It was the big banks that got paid. And I wish I was one of them. But anyway, so it could not happen. The more money that actually that actually put into the economy is the more money that makes demand goes up. As demand goes up, price goes up. So they couldn't do it. It would have literally killed it. So this is what happens. This is the way it looks. The feds put more money into the economy. Let's say they want to speed up the economy. Then what they do is they actually print, let's say they print $1 trillion into the economy. All right. And that's pretty much it. A year, $1 trillion a year, they put it into the economy. The feds then will give that money to the banks. The banks in return give it to 2 different entities: businesses, which is business loans, and people, or businesses and through loans, and they give it through people through loans. The business get the money and they're able to make payroll. Damon, I don't know if Damon seen Damon on earlier. I'm not sure if he's still on. Damon will tell you that they actually have what's called a payroll account. and they actually fund their payroll account from the banks. I will open line of credit to fund payroll. Most of your companies do that, whether you know it or not. Believe it or not, they're not living debt free. They're doing what's called an open line of credit at the banks. Well, as they actually get that money, then they actually are able to pay their employees. They get more money. They would pay at a lower interest rate. They would pay you more. That's how, if they've been honest and genuine and integrable. Some of them are saying, well, we got more money. We're going to keep it for ourselves. It's supposed to be meant for the workers. So as the workers get more money, what happens? You spend more money. Maybe we got an extra, $200 a month. That means that we can go and get a better car, a nicer car. So that nicer car is an extra $100 a month on the car. And you say, well, you know what? I've been meaning to do some house repairs. We're going to do some house repairs. Why? Because we got extra money. You got extra money. You're going to spend it. As that happens, demand goes up on all these different products. There's more money in the circulation. Inflation goes up with it. So feds give the money to the banks. The banks give the money to businesses. The business give the money to the people. And you get, also for home loans, auto loans, you get that from the bank as well. And you give it to the retailers. And the retailers do what? Put it back in the banks. If the feds want to take money out of circulation, they go to the banks and say, give me, this much money out. We need to control it. Or they will adjust the interest rates to actually be able to control that. The more money in circulation, the more you spend, the more demand, the higher inflation will be. The less money that's in circulation, the less money you have, the less in demand, the lower the inflation rate will be. Same thing with interest rates. If interest rates are high, it slows the economy down. If interest rates are low, it will speed the economy up. So it's not that inflation is making prices go up, it's that it's making your dollar cheaper. So we, on this Periscope, we need to be in the mindset that we have to outgrow the pace of inflation. How do we do that? We do that by putting our money in places where we get larger returns. Those are, you probably want to write these down. The number one thing that usually always, and you have to say usually, you can't say always. Usually always, most of the time, we can say that most of the time it outgrows it, is real estate. The number one investment that outgrows and the pace of inflation is real estate. Number one. Then you're looking at your mutual funds. You're looking at insurance. You got people who actually have shelters, tax shelters inside of insurance policies. I'm reading about that now, actually learning a lot by reading about that now, how to shelter money inside of your insurance policies. I'm not one who's ever been fond of cash value insurance policies. But I had to look at it with a different eye, reading different material and different books. There are people who are making, because it's tax, we're going to talk about those as well. But when you look at a investment that is outgrowing the pace of inflation and then is growing tax-free, something to look at. And then you can borrow against it without it being taxed, which is something else. We'll talk about all that kind of stuff. We're going to teach you this stuff. Why? Because it's one of the tools to get wealth. It's one of the tools that's going to beat the enemy over the head, which is one of the 5 enemies of wealth, inflation. We got to know these tools. So you have cash value insurance, you have real estate, you have your mutual funds, your RAs. Your RAs, they usually, anything that has to do with a hedge fund. Now listen, before you go into this stuff, you want to look at their historical records. And we're going to talk about investing. You want to look at their historical records, their historical trend over a period of time. Don't go get no mutual fund that has a 5-year history. They brand new. You don't know who's actually managing that fund. You don't know, because a mutual fund is simply this. Well, we're not going to go into that. We're not. It's just who's managing it is very important, and they don't have a track record. Somebody's actually taking that money, they invest it somewhere in other places. You want to know what their track record is. Are they good? It's like, I hate to use this analogy. It's like going to the horse track or whatever, or the car track or whatever. If you got somebody who ain't never raced a car before and they ain't never won a race, you probably not going to bet on them. Same way with your money. If you know that this person's been consistent over the last 10, 15, 20, 30 years, and he's consistently brought 12% returns, that's the one you want to go to. That's pretty much what it is. All right. So you start looking at your investments. You want to make sure that it actually puts your money in a place where it will outgrow inflation. That's all inflation is when your dollar gets weaker. But the more dollars you have and it outpaces inflation, then you're here and inflation's here, which means you're growing your wealth. You have to take into consideration this probably is the number two enemy of wealth. Number one is taxes. It's, man, listen. So you have inflation. Here are the 5 enemies of wealth. The 5 enemies of wealth. And I had them written down. I don't have them, but I got them on top of my head. You got number 1 would be taxes. Number 2, well, we're not gonna put them in a particular order till we're done. I'm gonna tell you about it. So you have taxation, inflation, procrastination, market loss, and debt. Let's say it again. Here's the 5 enemies of wealth. It's taxation, inflation, procrastination, market loss, and debt. Those are the 5 enemies of wealth. Say it again. Last time. Y'all ready? I know y'all writing it down. Y'all say I talk fast. I get all the time. Taxation, inflation, procrastination, market loss, and debt. Tomorrow we'll be coming on. We're going to be talking about the procrastination and debt. We'll be talking about procrastination and debt tomorrow. You want to tune in because every single day you delay investing, not only is inflation working against you, but you have compound interest that's not working in your favor, which means you're losing what's called an opportunity cost. All this is econ. This is like going back to economics, econ, but the every day you delay investing is costing you money. Like I'm not making this up. It's literally costing you money every single day you don't invest. You got to get started today. I'm going to teach you how to do it, teach you how to grow your wealth, teach you the fundamentals of investing, teach you the fundamentals of economics, teach you the fundamentals on how to grow your wealth. People are not teaching this stuff. You got to learn it if you want to actually know how to do it. So we do biblical principles in the morning. I believe that you are prosperous. I believe that we're the head, not the tail. I believe that we're blessed in the field, blessed in the city. But I believe that we're the lender of many nations, brought for. I believe all this stuff that God desires to make us prosperous and be in wealth, even as our soul shall prosper. That God desires all those things. But if we don't know the fundamentals, He says, "I will bless the work of your hands." What are we working towards? Are we working forwards or backwards? And so we believe God to give us good investments to put our money in because we understand the economy. Where there is my people perish for what? Lack of knowledge. You got to get the foundation of knowledge and watch God do the rest. That's our time for the day. God bless you. Thank you for yours. Thank you for listening to this repeat. I know some of you guys said we heard this on Thursday. So thanks for tuning into this repeat. We'll be talking about debt and procrastination on tomorrow and how they are working against you. Those are double trouble. I'll be right here tomorrow morning at 7 o'clock. 7 o'clock. If you guys didn't hear today, you need to hear today's message. You can actually listen to it. We actually be uploaded to our YouTube channel. That's G.M. Howard Jr. Ministries on our YouTube channel. Listen, share this information. And I know sometimes this information can be kind of boring. And I try to make it fun. That's why I got the little plums and stuff up here. That's why I got you texting in, trying to make it more interactive. Because sometimes I know it can get kind of dry, it can get kind of boring. But this information is so important that you got to get it. And the more you understand, the more you know how to manage your money. The more you understand about this stuff, the more you know how to manage your money. And so with that being said, I'm signing out. God bless you. I love you. I'll see you tomorrow right here at 7 o'clock. Bye-bye.